through this Facebook, I'm understanding I have over 400 people have contacted the barn to see if I'm still here or tell me there are great stories of how the barn has played into their life. All these things I didn't know what I was really doing when I was doing it. How do I explain that?
Ms. Witt, I was so thrilled to see you on here and to connect to you. In 1963 or 64, you were a substitute teacher in my English class. I wrote an essay which you asked if you could read to the class. Naturally, being shy, I asked you not to. However, you pulled me aside and told me you saw talent in my writing and I should consider a career in that field. I have never forgotten, and next year, I am pleased to say, my first novel will come out. You have always been in my thoughts, and I owe so much to you. Thank you, and bless you. Bernadette Thompson Martin.
Pat Witt founded the Barn Studio of Art in 1962, almost 50 years ago. The buildings are in need of some rehabbing, so on December 10, 2011, the barn held a unique fundraiser. You could choose from over 100 of Pat's artworks, each one priced at only $100. The day before the sale, I came over to talk to her and document some of her wonderful art. And the next day, 100 sold, so the barn will be getting its remodeling done.
Can you believe it? It will be 50 years here. In 1962, I was babysitting some children across the street, and my cousins lived here. This big old barn was put up for sale. I just loved it here, and I would come over and have tea with her. Cousin Edith, she was an older woman then. She always wanted to be an architect, but she was a farm girl, and farm girls did not become architects, but she never lost that idea that she wanted to create. Cousin Edith, I would sure love to have this barn. It's just what I wanted, but the property was for sale, 35 acres for $35,000. And I said, well, I don't have $35,000, but I would love to have the barn. She said, now what would you do with it if you had the barn? I said, I would have an art school. Suppose I put up 2 acres and the barn. It'll be $10,000. I said, but I don't have $10,000. And very kindly, my mother offered to give me a $1,000 down payment. I started with 3 students in that first room as you come in, 3 little tripod easels that look like toothpicks. You just start with a dream and you let it take it where you want. This studio costs more than the whole barn. I took out a life insurance policy. I took chances all my life. I never questioned that I couldn't do it. I just did it. I never had any money. It still doesn't have any money, but it still works. There's something happening, you know, and I call it the magic bubble over this whole place of protection. It was meant to be. It just meant to be. And you know how many children have studied here? I'm just finding out. We have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation coming here. Many students will bring their children and say, remember, I used to be over there. That was my easel. Have you ever heard them say, I want to give my children the things I didn't have? I believe you should give your children the things you did have, because you must have art in your life. It makes us human. I disliked school greatly, and it embarrassed my family because all my aunts and my mother were school teachers. It was pretty shocking for them. And I got in a lot of trouble in school because I was always doodling. I could transport myself into another place and not be in the classroom. And my mother, to this day, I know she was brilliant because she said, I'll put you in a school where all you do is draw. And so she checked it out and found the Philadelphia Museum School of Industrial Art at Broad and Pine, now the University of the Arts, had Saturday classes for young people. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I excelled. My first report card was E, excellent, excellent in creativity, excellent in imagination. Whereas in a public school, I got all red 5s most of the time. That was a wise woman. And I think today's children, once they find their way to the Barnes Studio of Art, I can identify. I have worked with so many children who are excelling in school because of the arts. I believe that art in your life is the best thing that could ever happen to us.
During World War II, she met a GI named Bill Witt.
I was a USO hostess at that time, but I decided I was going to go on to art school. I got accepted full-time at the Philadelphia Museum School of Industrial and Textile Design. It was becoming a wartime marriages, and I met Bill Witt, and we married. He said, you don't need to go to art school anymore. We moved to Augusta, Georgia. He was still in the Army, in the service. I lived with his parents. I found out there was an art school in Augusta, Georgia. It was called the Harry Hobart Art School. And unbeknownst to the entire family, I would pretend I was going to go play tennis with some friends, and I would go off to art school. So after I was found out, his whole family were angry. They didn't think you needed to have a career, period, but especially in the arts, you're always going to be a poor, starving artist. That old cliche. I had a child, Nancy. I had to get back to the north, and so I came back and I went to the farm with Nancy and lived with my parents. And separation came in, and I chose art over my husband, you know, because I just knew it was cut out for me. I knew it from the very beginning. So if you allow or permit something to block that journey of you wanting to be, especially into the arts, you have to push aside and do what one must to create. That's how I feel about it, and still do.
I was asking your mom whether, in a sense, it's kind of selfish to be an artist, but you're the daughter. What do you think?
She was a really good mother. She made life very fun because every holiday, every occasion, she did something special for it. You know, like we would always have cherries and little hatchets for George Washington's birthday, and we'd have these little coconut potatoes for St. Patrick's Day, and she just would decorate, you know, with all kinds of crazy stuff. She would make it herself, so it was great fun.
In 1962, the same year she opened the Barnes Studio of Art, Pat went to Glassboro State to study arts education. In 1965, she met an artist who would become her most important mentor.
I studied with Morris Blackburn for nearly 15 years. And every now and then he would say, Patricia, I want to cut your smock strings. I said, but you haven't taught me everything. If I were to dedicate my art show, I would dedicate it to Morris Blackburn, because this man was a traveling universe. Everything I have learned and put into practice was his philosophy, his psychology of art, every book he ever recommended. He knew gouache, he knew what he called wipeout. He had the greatest terminologies. The less is more, the pay as you go, dare to be lousy was his most famous saying. And I always said I never let him down. And I can teach any and every medium because I had a great teaching from the museum and from the academy, and a great teacher. If you have a great mentor, you'll just fly.
Through having classes and through the sales of her paintings, she's made her living at the Barn Studio for 50 years.
Impressive.
Cumberland County Improvement Authority, Community Environmental Enhancement Grant.
So is Pat a bit of an environmentalist?
Absolutely, yes. She has been an advocate for the wetlands her whole life. I think she read Silent Spring by Rachel Carlson and has always worked to cut down on the amount of pesticides used in the environment and tried to keep a low carbon footprint in her lifestyle. Part of every art lesson is learning the names of all the plants and the trees that grow in this area.
Do the students ever come out here to paint?
Oh yes, all the time. In the summer, you'll find groups of students all around the pond painting.
Oh, man. Wow.
If I'm taking 4-year-olds out on a nature walk, and I think like a 4-year-old, whatever age you are, I'll just be that age, you see. They'll say, well, if you're a painter, you can't be a teacher, or you're a teacher, you can't be. I never have separated them. I think the two are so tightly together. I just think it's all lumped into a wonderful life.
Can you recall some of her most illustrious students?
Glenn Roderow certainly has become one of her most famous students. She's had a whole group of students that went on to become abstract painters like Mary Namakos and Keith Ragone. Her students are all over the world. And we get letters every week from people in Florida, in Denmark, saying that they studied here and were inspired.
In recent years, Pat has been losing her eyesight to macular degeneration, and yet she continues to paint. Her humility, strength, and spirit are simply awe-inspiring.
My central vision is gone. It's something that happens to some people. Unfortunately, it did happen to a lot of artists in the past. And so I got to continue creating. And I think the creating part is still teaching and being with young people and watching them grow and go through up to what you want to be. See, what you want to be. There's a new book out called The Pun Also Rises. I love puns. And so I bought the book. And the crazy thing about it, I can't see to read anymore. So I buy books, right? I find trash and I can see something in it right away. Well, Picasso gave us that, you know, the bicycle seat, Duchamp, oh my goodness. So these people inspire you to be creative. I found an old gnarled rake out in the field, and it's all twisted, and I call it rather rakish. So, and then an old gnarled tractor seat. I call this one, The Seat Has Been Taken. I have hundreds of art journals. I record the weather and the wind and the direction and what happened that day and all the good things. Keeping a positive energy is the most important thing to a person, and not to be negative. Glenn Roderow said I was an incorrigible, positive person. Maybe I am.
Are you a religious person?
I'm very spiritual, yes. I believe in God, I believe in angels, and I believe that I've been blessed by God always, all my life. I'll just say, oh God, thank you, thank you. I don't get down on my knees or say it, but I'll look at a tree and I'll say, thank you, God, you know, or I thank you for the stars, or, you know, I just thank them all the time for all these gifts. These are gifts that we're here. I don't listen to the news, by the way. I listen to the jazz and classical station, and when news comes on, I turn it off. Because I have to stay positive for my students. Because a lot of people are sad out there. Well, if you listen to the news, you're going to be depressed. Why do you want to listen to something that makes you feel bad? Besides, it's done. It's done. If you ever listen to BBC, it's already happened. So you got to keep yourself positive, or you'll get crushed out there. All you need to look at the beauty of nature, and God is there.
Mine will never die.